それでは、今から、先ほど申し上げた、ホメロさん、なんていうんですかね、本当なかなか会えない、ブラジルで大成功されているベンチャーキャピタルの方なので、ぜひお話聞いていただきたいと思います。So, Romero-san, I just quickly did a brief introduction about you. So, please share your insight of the Brazilian market, the startup ecosystem, and attractiveness of Brazil, please. Okay, thank you so much. So, we have many slides. それでは、Romero-さん、よろしくお願いします。Let's get started.
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon. Happy to be here with you. Let me start telling why I'm here and what I've been doing in Brazil in the last 27 years. So I started my career dropping out engineering school to start Buscapé, which was the Cacacu.com for Brazil, long time ago, 1998. After several years, I ended up selling the company to Naspers Prosus. Naspers Prosus is the first investor of Tencent. At the time, it was the largest exit that a Brazilian startup had, in the north of $400 million. After I sold the company, I spent another 5 years at Prosus, and then I left Prosus and joined Headline to run the Latin American fund. So I'm based in São Paulo. I run a early stage fund that invests in Latin American startups out of São Paulo. So today we have 4 funds, $500 million in asset under management, and we are involved in 9 unicorns. So let's talk about the Brazilian market. So as many of you know, Brazil is huge. So we're talking about 210 million people, about 70% larger in terms of population than Japan. Brazil also has the largest diaspora of Japanese descendant people, Nikkei. So just in São Paulo, we are more than 2 million, and in Brazil in general, close to 3 Japanese descendants there. Brazil GDP is huge, but compared to Japan is smaller. So we are about 80% smaller than Japan's $5 trillion annual GDP. And Brazilians, as many of you know, are addicted to digital products. So the #1 city in terms of rides for Uber is not New York, it's São Paulo, by far. Same thing happens for Instagram, same thing happens for WhatsApp, same thing happens for almost any digital product. But at the same time, Brazil is a super inefficient market. Lots of different taxes, high tax burden, very difficult to employ people, to attract people, also very fragmented logistics, a very expensive health system, so inefficiencies are across the board. But this is not at all bad, because for venture capital, and especially for startups, when you have a lot of inefficiencies, you have a lot of opportunities. So usually we like to say that a startup to be successful, they need to deliver 10 times more value for 10 times less price. It's very hard to do that in Japan. Japan is super efficient. It's way easier to do that in Brazil. So when we look at the venture capital scene, you can see that has been pretty stable. So during the last years, the number of deals and the amount of capital deployed in the Brazilian market has remained the same, which is good news. So we invest around $3 billion in almost 500 companies every year. But I think what is more interesting to see is how underpenetrated venture capital and technology is in the Brazilian economy. So when you think about the tech companies, they account for only 3.5% of the Brazilian GDP. You compare that to India. In India, we have 19%. In China, 20%. In US, of course, 80%. So we have at least 4 times more penetration in terms of tech in the economy than we have today. So it's a huge opportunity. And I think the good news is Brazil is not a promise anymore. over the last 26 years, Brazil delivered some fantastic exits. So the largest neobank, the largest digital bank worldwide is a Brazilian bank called Nubank. It's a company listed in the US stock market, and the value of this company is $65 billion today. Brazil is also home of Pismo, the largest M&A for fintech infrastructure. So Pismo does credit card processing. So it's basically the company that is behind the credit card machine and the banks, connecting everything. We were lucky to be the first investors in the company. So we wrote a check of $1 million for 20% of the company, 25%. And 7 years after, Visa acquired the company for $1 billion in cash. So for our LPs, it meant $220 million back in realized gains. But also what's quite interesting to see is that Asia Capital already came to the region and was also super successful by doing so. If you think about it, my company, Buscapé, was acquired by Prosus, first investor of Tencent. Also, Prosus invested in iFood, and Prosus, their largest asset, their balance sheet is pretty much Tencent, right? Didi acquired the largest app for drives, for cars, called 99. And interesting enough, although Prosus has Tencent as its largest asset in their balance sheet, they don't have a Chinese CEO. The global CEO of Prosus is a Brazilian, Fabrício Bloise, friend of mine. So to finish, Brazil is huge. Brazil is second largest reserve of rare earths. Brazil is the second largest exporter of agricultural products. It's one of the largest countries in terms of renewable energy, which is great to power AI data centers. And at the same time, the reset we saw in the recent years made startup valuations in Brazil extremely attractive compared to other regions. So, to finish, Brazil and Japan has a partnership for over 110 years, since the first Japanese arrived there to help develop the country and agriculture. Brazil today, in my opinion, stands for Japan as the starting point, the gateway to enter Latin America. You enter through Brazil, you conquer Brazil, and you expand to Latin America, reaching a 650 million people market. But for Japanese capital, I think it's even more complementary, because Japan has capital looking for growth, and Brazil has growth looking for capital. Thank you.
小村さんありがとうございました。